Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Nat, joined always by my two beautiful colleagues. Or colleagues? Would that be colleagues? But my two beautiful friends, Raj and Fab. And we're excited to welcome Junior, who's 1/3 of the Partial Breakaway Podcast. Welcome, Junior.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, the Partial Breakaway crew actually celebrated their 100th episode in a live show this Sunday. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. We're very proud of that.
Yeah, well done, honestly. And I know Roger, I think you were there celebrating in person. I couldn't make it on Sunday, but I know you were there for the festivities.
Yes, I was donning my thrifted Leafs jacket. It was great to show my Leafs pride. And but yeah, it was a great time. Nick, Junior, and Vince, congratulations again on the success, and looking forward to another 100 episodes for you guys. It was a great time there.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Congratulations on the milestone.
Huge milestone,
and for all you guys who are interested in hockey, you could follow them on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Truly amazing pod for all you hockey lovers. So check it out. For us, we're going to continue. We have our last division preview, which will be the NFC West. So we've done all previous divisions, and make sure, please, to check out our 2QB Superflex draft strategy and mock draft that was recorded yesterday. That is out now. So please check that out as well. And please follow us, like always, on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. So without further ado, we'll dive right in. We'll start with the Los Angeles Rams, who finished 10-7 and were the NFC West champions. So they won the division with balance. Did lack a little clear-cut WR1. I know that they battled injuries on that front with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. Kyron Williams, despite being labeled as a punter in the offseason, had a really solid year, and to everyone's surprise, did not return one punt. They took the Eagles down to the wire, actually, in the wild card? I think it was the wild card round, right? No, it wasn't a wild card. It was divisional round.
The divisional round, yeah.
So they were, took them down to the wire, almost had them. And with rookies Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, those guys rose onto the scene and figured to be looking like they're kind of like an Aaron Donald replacement, I would say, looking really, really strong on that front. The offseason, they signed Devante Adams to a 2-year, $46 million deal. So that makes things interesting. Drafted Jarquez Hunter, running back. Drafted also Terrence Ferguson in the second round. So we'll go basically by position groups. So they've got the QB, obviously Matt Stafford, who has been in the headlines for the wrong reasons all offseason. With back problems and all kinds of issues, neck, I believe, as well. So right now going as QB24, ADP of 109. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one. I know he was, people kind of saw him as a good QB2 option going into the year, but now with all this injury trouble, Raj, curious to see where you using Stafford. Like, what do you see Stafford as this year?
It's over for Stafford for like draftable QB1. It's over. I think even QB2, it's borderline. He's like in the low 20s in terms of touchdowns. The completion percentage is still high, 3,700 yards, but the Rams have become a running team. The Rams really focused on like being a 3 wide receiver, 1 running back team, but pound the football down your throats. And I think it's a way to save Matthew Stafford. I think it's a way to leverage and utilize Kyron Williams, who's we'll talk about after, but is a touchdown machine. But we talked about a little bit in our 2QB episode yesterday, Knack, like Matthew Stafford at QB 24. I'd rather take like flyers on Cam Ward or even Sam Darnold, who I know some we'll talk about later as well. But I think it's pretty much over for Matthew Stafford being a bona fide fantasy starter.
It's funny, he's 37, but he feels like 47. Like he's a very old 37. I feel
Fab, his body might be 50.
Yeah, seriously.
He used to take a ton of hits in Detroit.
He did in Detroit.
He did.
His body got destroyed. What are your thoughts, Fab?
I don't disagree with Roger. I've always liked Matthew Stafford, but you're capping yourself with how high the ceiling is going to be, and it won't be very high at all. Obviously, you're not going to get any rushing upside whatsoever. I love the addition of Devante Adams. I think that gives him a boost in for Stafford. I think that gives him a boost in touchdowns this year, but not a whole lot. You are looking at a low end QB2, but it's a very safe floor, right? I mean, you're looking at other more volatile QB2s out there. Like Roger, you mentioned Sam Darnold. For me, that's very volatile. Like you don't know what you're getting one week to the next, right? So I would much rather go with a safer option as my QB2 with Matthew Stafford there. You know what you're getting, and there are going to be games where he might not play.
He might not finish the season.
Well, he's not my first choice.
He might retire.
I'm comparing him to Sam Darnold.
Well, imagine mid-season retiring.
Wow.
No, that's not going to happen. He's going to play the whole season. Like they didn't draft Devante Adams for them not to like make one more push for the chip. Like they probably saw what they had last year and how far they pushed the Super Bowl winning team, right? So they probably feel like they have a little bit more left in the tank than maybe other people might think. I feel like Matthew Stafford right now is in like his LeBron era, right? Later on in his career, like he's just being rested for the big dance at the very end. Also the same age too. No, Roger, not gonna give me
like
something.
4 years younger, and actually, I don't know. The camp scares me. Like the way they're talking, like it sounded like he had to be stretchered on. It sounded like they RoboCopped him during camp this summer.
He's got the cortisone shots going, and it's okay. That's all.
Yeah.
Junior, anything to add to that?
No, I kind of agree with Fab. He's got like a safe floor, right? But especially with all the weapons around them, they got a good running game. They have Puka Nakua. They got Devante Adams, Kyron Williams. So like the only thing that worries me is when you have a quarterback that's that vulnerable to injuries, I want my offensive line to be like top 5 in the league in pass protection. And yeah, last year they ranked anywhere between 13 and 15 there, and they were kind of mid. So that worries me a little bit. But I mean, in really deep leagues, if you really like your depth, and you want to add a third quarterback, maybe, but I don't know if I can trust him as a QB2, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with Roger Jr. there. I'm not. If I have Matthew Stafford as my QB2, I'm panicking a little bit because definitely the re-injury concern throughout the year. We'll move to the running back situation. So, as I mentioned, Kyron Williams had a really great year last year. And I think a lot of fantasy managers got him at a discount because everyone was worried that he was going to return punts and that Blake Corum was going to eat into his workload. Obviously, we know how that ended. It did not happen, and he ended up having a really good year. Going as RB12, 32 ADP. I know we mentioned that they drafted Jarquez Hunter. Could he potentially eat into Kyron Williams' his workload? What do you think?
No, I don't think so. For me, Kyron Williams is like in the same tier as a Jonathan Taylor. Like he's a very safe low end RB1. I've always been a Kyron Williams fan, to be honest with you. And even last year, like after the whole thing about like he's punting and the punt returns and all that stuff, whatever, it's like it's fine. You know what? Like if this guy falls to you as if you're looking for I know you guys did your episode on draft strategies a little bit yesterday. And if you're looking for like a 0 RB strategy and he falls to you like a little bit later than RB12, like you can do a lot worse than Kyron Williams as your RB1 for the rest of the season, in my opinion. Yeah, sure, you want to be careful and pick up the handcuff, go for it. There's nothing wrong with being safe, but I would feel secure with Kyron Williams. He doesn't get banged up all that much as far as injury history is concerned too. I like that spot at RB12. You look at the guys that are going around that area, and there's Jonathan Taylor right before him, Josh Jacobs right before him, and then obviously you get into the Bucky Irvins and Chase Browns, right? But then after him, maybe Alvin Kamara will be interesting, maybe. But I would take Kyron Williams over James Cook, over Marion Hampton, over Kenneth Walker III, et cetera, et cetera. So he's perfectly ranked for me, and I would feel comfortable if he was my RB1.
Interesting. Junior, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a little bit disrespected year in and year out. And I mean, you can tell me if maybe
Talk
my
to him,
stats
Junior.
are
Talk
wrong,
to him.
but
Say it
I
louder.
was shocked when I saw this stat. But he had 43 red zone touches last year, which was the best, the ranked number 1 among running backs. So like he's in a running back happy offense. Sean McVay knows how to use him, and they give him the ball, man. They give him the ball. Just under 1,300 yards rushing last year. I just wish he was a bit better in a PPR league. He doesn't catch much, but like Fab said, I mean, if you're gonna go zero RB strategy, he's not a bad number one running back to have.
No, it's like you guys said it well. Meat and potatoes type of running back. 26 touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. 80% carry share over last season as well. The only apprehension you would have, again, is there a bit where he's tethered to Matthew Stafford, where if there's an injury and they have to put in a Jimmy Garoppolo or Stenson Bennett, do those red zone attempts maybe go down? But as long as Stafford is healthy, as long as that offense is humming, they're going to give him the ball.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think when we're talking about safe floors, I think Kyron Williams is that. And as Fab mentioned, you could definitely do a lot worse than Kyron Williams as your RB1. As far as the wide receivers go, so we've got Puka Nakua, who's still going pretty high, wide receiver 7, ADP 17. Pretty elite ceiling, but he does have that injury history and seems to, I don't know if he's going to get to ever get to double-digit touchdowns. And then you have Devante Adams going 10 picks later at or 10 spots after at wide receiver 17 and ADP of 56. So looking at these wide receivers, Raj, I'd love to get your input. Are you more likely to spend a higher pick as like a wide receiver 7 on Puka, or would you maybe look at the value in taking Devante Adams a little bit later?
I love Puka Nakua. I love the way he plays. He's extremely physical wide receiver. Again, we're going to talk about the Matthew Stafford stuff. Worries me, but the touchdown, kind of allergic to touchdowns, worries me even more. Adding to Devante Adams, future Hall of Famer, a guy who was put on earth to basically score touchdowns. Like he had 18 touchdowns. He had an 18 touchdown and 14 touchdown season. So, and Nakua is an injury risk. Like the way he plays, he's always hobbled. He's always injured. It felt like he had like 2 or 3 injuries last year where I owned him, and every time you just see him across the field, catch a pass, truck someone over, like he looked like he was hobbled. So, WR7 makes sense for him. I'm gonna maybe pass this year, and I'd rather take Devante Adams at that cost.
I feel like he plays a bit reckless, kind of like I know it's a different position, but like Anthony Richardson, if I can compare him to that. They're just like a reckless kind of player who put themselves into a position where they're potentially going to get hurt, But Fab, you think it's out of the realm of possibility that Devontae actually outscores Puka in points per game?
No, I was about to say that you're getting the wide receiver 1 on this team 10 spots later than Devante. Sorry, Devante Adams over Puka Nakua. I think Devante Adams is going to end the season with more fantasy points than Puka Nakua.
Hot take, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know why? Stafford's going to get injured, and who's going to be throwing in the ball after?
Jimmy G gets
There
his
it
best
is.
friend back.
There it is.
Didn't Devante Adams say like this guy's gonna get me killed when they
100%.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
He did.
I was like,
100%.
what?
Sure
When did
did.
they play together? I forgot about his Raiders stint.
It's going to get me
Yeah,
killed.
he got rid of him. He wanted to leave him to now end up maybe back playing together a couple of years later, which is pretty funny. What do you think, Junior, about this Rams WR room?
Man, it's sad because it's all dependent on Stafford, right? But I think I feel safer with Nakua because of the volume he sees, right? Regardless if it's Stafford or Bennett or Garoppolo, he's going to see a lot of volume. So in PPR leagues, that's great. I just feel like he can be more efficient without Stafford than Devante Adams can, and Devante Adams might become TD dependent without Stafford. So if I had to choose, I think I would still go Nakua.
I think I like that. I think it's well put the way you say it, because me too. I actually think that Nakua might have more of the receptions, and he'll have more games with 7, 8 catches, and Devonte Adams might have a few more games with 5 or fewer. But I'm thinking he gets more touchdowns. But as you mentioned, it's all tied back to Stafford, who if he gets injured, I think it brings them both down. But yeah, I think you're probably right that Nakua will still have a little bit more value in PPR leagues for sure. Then we get to the tight end, which is Tyler Higbee is still there chucking along, and they drafted Terrence Ferguson. Fab, is Ferguson someone that could emerge as a surprise rookie tight end one?
Yeah, it's not impossible, but a lot of that is obviously tiered to the quarterback play, right? And we talk about how like when Stafford has to stay healthy, he has to stay healthy. Sure. I mean, Stafford routinely does target his tight end, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Like Tyler Higbee was a household name a little bit last year, so and that's because of Stafford. So it's entirely possible. I'm just not. I'm keeping an eye on this, but I'm not really reaching for him during the draft. It's really a guy that I'll be looking at once the season starts rolling around. That we're seeing how the offense is running, and if there is any interest in picking up Terrence Ferguson from a from a rookie perspective. I mean, I'm
Makes
not leaving the
sense.
draft with this guy. I want to be clear on that.
No.
I don't think I'm leaving the
Totally.
draft with either of them. But Junior, anything to
No, same. They're waiver wire pickups, if anything.
Yep.
Raj? Any last
Agreed.
word?
No, agreed. He had a nice. I think he has a good athletic profile. That's worth like taking note of. Like 4.3 speed, 39 vertical jump, and he played at Oregon with Bo Nix, so he was probably the third option behind like Troy Franklin and Tez Walker, but definitely someone to put in the watch candidate list for sure.
Yes.
Awesome.
And just one thing on Stafford is this division is like there for the taking.
Yeah.
Like, literally any of the 4 teams can win this division. So in the event that they do have a bit of a lead in the standings or whatever, they might, like schedule his games and maybe not play him a week or two if they want to rest him or something. They'll have that possibility because of how maybe not bad, but unpredictable this division could be. So it's really risky, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's
That's a fair point.
definitely a team that's risk averse. That's for sure for the upcoming season. That'll do it for the LA Rams. We will go into the Seattle Seahawks. Also finished 10-7, lost a tiebreaker to the Rams, so unfortunately missed out on the playoffs. Basically, JSN broke out last year, top 10 wide receiver with Geno Smith. Walker obviously missed some time as usual. Charbonnet continues to be involved, have a pretty good 1-2 punch, and either of them can carry the load if being used as a 3-down back. And honestly, very awful offensive line last year. So it kind of capped their run game, I would say. Some noteworthy changes. Clint Kubiak is now the OC. And Sam Darnold obviously is the QB. He kind of gets an audition for 1 year, potentially 3-year deal. They added hometown man Cooper Kupp and Torrey Horton to the wide receiver room. So we'll start off with you, Junior. As I mentioned, they have a new QB in the system. Sam Darnold had his best year as a pro last year with the Minnesota Vikings, going 15-1. Obviously, he does not have Kevin O'Connell. Excuse me. He doesn't have Kevin O'Connell right now in his back pocket. So can Kubiak get the same out of Darnold that O'Connell was last year? And could we see Darnold mimic kind of the same type of production as last season?
I mean, they put a lot of effort in building the trenches this offseason, the Seahawks did, so which they needed to. But you saw last year, the Vikings started with a really good pass protection. And as it deteriorated towards the end of the season, so did Darnold's play. So if they don't have a great offensive line, it's going to be really hard for him to really put up some good numbers. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a decent floor. I still think he can have a decent floor, but I don't know. It's going to be very hard. I think that offensive line is going to be the X factor for sure.
Yeah, and last year I think he finished just outside the top 10 in fantasy numbers, if I'm not mistaken. Top 15 for sure.
Yeah.
So he was slotted in and week out as your wide receiver. Your QB2. This year, kind of going the same way, same where he was going last year in the draft. QB 27, ADP of 121. Raj, is that kind of where you see him going, or do you have more higher hopes on Darnold?
I think a lot of people are scared of Sam Darnold, including myself, and I still have flashbacks of the Detroit game, so the last game of the season, and then the playoff game against the Rams, where couldn't score a touchdown. You saw those shades of seeing ghosts with the Jets, and then I know the Seahawks did a really good job of improving their offensive line. They drafted Gray Zabel. They've been a little bit the talk of preseason with their running game and their improved offensive line. But we talked about it yesterday or at the QB Superflex strategy show. Kevin O'Connell is a QB whisperer, and I'm not exactly confident that Clint Kubiak is going to be able to make sure that Sam Darnold repeats as he was a QB7 last year. So I personally, I think he's slated correctly, and I think the market is saying we need to see Sam Darnold do it again, which is why he's at QB 27.
Fab, any last words?
I've also heard talk that they plan on involving Jalen Milroe in some packages as well. So that's going to be removing Sam Darnold from the field a little bit more. Yeah, I agree with Roger. I think he's appropriately ranked at that spot at QB 27. And even if I would be drafting him as a QB3, I would still be a little bit hesitant because there's so much unknown with him and how he's going to be operating in that offense. So yeah, it's not exactly a situation I want to be involved in, to be honest.
Fab, the Milroe point is really interesting, and I agree with it. And it gives me vibes of Derek Carr when he'd be in the red zone. You'd want him to throw the pass, and then they'd bring in Taysom Hill. And I know Jalen Milroe, they see him as a QB in the long run, but there was nothing more frustrated than Taysom Hill coming in to throw a pass or run for it. So that's a really good point.
Guys, I really just wanted to use that feature to raise my hand in the studio. No, but really, sorry, I just wanted to say, I think Kubiak's offense is a little bit more balanced, and I think that could help Darnold too a little bit, as opposed to what he saw with the Vikings, But yeah, no, that's a cool feature, by the way.
Well, to go into just a quick end on the packages for Milroe. I know the Steelers did the same thing last year in the offseason when they said that they would do the same thing with Justin Fields, and they didn't use him all that much. He came in for maybe a couple plays. I think the most was 5 plays in a game. So maybe it's just a way of, having the other defensive coordinators scheme again, like having to, account for Milroe in practice too. So it could be that, but it is definitely a fair point if it ends up happening. We'll dive into the running backs. So we mentioned Kenneth Walker III, RB16, and an ADP of 50.5. Explosive, but a little fragile. And you have Zach Charbonnet, running back 36 right now. Potential sleeper, top 24 potential. I know, Fab, you just had a draft and you drafted Kenneth Walker III. What are your thoughts on this backfield?
So I've always been a fan of Kenneth Walker III, so I'm slightly biased in this regard. I want to address a few things. One, the injury concern. He only missed 5 games last year and won the previous 2 years. Injury concern is a little bit too strong there. He's coming into the camp healthy. RB16, I think this is a very good value spot because he actually could put up weekly RB1 numbers. When I say RB1 numbers, I mean like top 12. I don't want to beat the drum over here and say he's going to finish as a top 5 RB. But I do like Kenneth Walker quite a bit this year, and I think he's going at a very good value spot. I like the offense he's going to be running in with Clint Kubiak, and they play a lot of outside zone scheme, which is really well suited for Kenneth Walker III. Whenever I speak about Kenneth Walker III, I have to say his entire name in respect. So Charbonnet does concern me a bit because he's actually a good player. And so you have to take that into account. But I wouldn't necessarily be shying away from drafting Kenneth Walker III especially at RB16. And we spoke about a few guys earlier when we were talking about Kyren Williams. And I feel like the upside with KW3 is worth picking him at that spot. And you're getting a mid-tier RB2 that I feel like can bring you back like weekly RB1 numbers.
And Raj, I know in our mock draft yesterday, you bypassed Kenneth Walker and took Charbonnet later on. So I'm assuming you like Charbonnet more than Walker.
I think Walker is an amazing talent. I think my issue with him is the yards per carry have gone from 4.6 in his rookie year in 2022 to 4.1 to 3.7. Yes, that is attributed to the poor offensive line play over the past, 1 or 2 seasons. But then his yards after contact has also gone down almost by a full yard between 2023 and 2024. And again, like the injury concern, he's just always injured. Even when he plays, it seems like he's always dealing with an oblique. He has multiple foot injuries. So at cost, where you could get Zach Charbonnet, I think you said, I think RB36. You're pretty much getting him in the 70s or 80s. I'd much rather take Charbonnet at cost, banking on the fact that Kenneth Walker III might get injured.
So you're running through those stats there. I'm just wondering, did you consider talking about how he's broken the most amount of tackles last year? Was that in there? I guess not, eh? Okay, cool. I think it's important that
He's
we
always
keep our
injured.
listeners honest, right? So just saying. And he still broke the most amount of tackles. So imagine if he wasn't injured. Just saying.
Yeah, but like this part of his, like, that's part of him. He's injured. Like, he's injured all the time. I
And he
don't
breaks
want that
tackles
risk.
when he's injured.
I agree. He's a fantastic player that is just always hurt.
Yeah, no,
and just not something I want to deal with.
No, I get that. I'm joking a little bit there, but I do think that there is definitely a little bit of a red flag that comes with him. But it's hard to pass up his talent, though. I find that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Junior, final word.
Yeah, the thing with Kenneth Walker is you would think he missed so many games, but then when you go look at the stats, he didn't really miss too many games. But I found myself seeing him like leave the game often.
Exactly.
And so he wasn't getting complete games in, and I think that's the unfortunate part. But between the two running backs, I don't know if it had anything to do with the offensive line being so bad, but
For sure.
they combined for like 100 receptions, and like I think if Walker had 46 receptions, and I think Charbonnet had 42, so that's a plus too. Which either way you go.
I think like Charbonnet becomes like a pretty good flex option week in and week out. Even if Walker is healthy, because like as you mentioned, he does come out of the game a lot with an injury. They will be spelled. They will both play on game day when healthy. So I think you can't go wrong. I definitely like the Charbonnet value.
I feel like this could be a little bit of Detroit light, but instead of them being an RB1 and an RB2, it's an RB2 and a flex play because I feel like they're both going to get volume and both going to get opportunities.
And they're both, like, I think that the yards, the missed tackles aspect is a good one, Fab, but they're both very fit. Like, Charbonnet is an absolute load. Like, he punishes people when he plays. The difference is he seems, so far it seems like he's a bit more healthy, but we'll have to see. But
Does Walker get most of the red zone opportunities, or is it Charbonnet?
he's typically been more of the red zone play, and then Charbonnet seems like he's a bit more. He had the really good Cardinals game where he was 22 for 134, 2 touchdowns, and he had also 7 catches for 59 yards. So I think he's going to be a bit more of the third down back, and Kenneth Walker would typically maybe be more in the red zone, but.
Yeah, Charbonnet is more of like the change of pace, third down back, and also he's the back in the hurry up as well. We'll move forward to the wide receivers. We have Jackson Smith Njigba, who's going as wide receiver 12, ADP of 36. And then there's Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 45 with an ADP of 113, kind of in the sleeper value. I'll ask you, Junior, do you see JSN climbing into the top 5 tier, or is he overrated as, defense is key in?
It's tough because now the attention is mostly on him, right? Metcalf is not there. I know Raj in a previous episode was talking about, are they going to make him the X receiver? Does that change? Is he better as a slot receiver? So I don't know. There's way too many questions for me to bank on him on being a top 5. Does he have the potential? Of course. And if everything goes well, he can. But I don't know if I'm willing to gamble on that.
It does seem a little bit high, wide receiver 12. I mean, I love the player, but again, we're talking offensive line that's, it's remade. Sam Darnold is now there. Is it going to be the same Raj as the Najigbas in Paris
What?
fantasy name?
What?
How do you feel about JSN?
I think 12 is fair. He's right before T. Higgins, the disaster that's coming up with Garrett Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, and Devante Adams. So I think you could swing between JSN and T. Higgins either way. 82% slot percentage last year. That's going to go down with Cooper Kupp being there. I think he has enough wiggle and enough speed to play some X receiver and play some on the outside as well. But he's going to be moved around. And just from what we saw from Cooper Kupp, I'm not too concerned about Cooper Kupp being there. He looked like an absolute shell of his former self. And I think injuries have caught up to him. And if there's one thing that Kubiak, I think, will do is he will scheme up plays in that type of Shanahan, Kubiak type offense. So I think his wide receiver 11, 12 around Ladd McConkey area. I think that's fair.
Would you take a Tyreek Hill or Mike Evans before Jason?
I would take Tyreek Hill because I think Tyreek Hill is I think his cost is going to be better in drafts than JSN. And I think if Tyreek Hill, if Tua plays and is healthy, and you're getting a Tyreek Hill that's motivated and it's similar to a few years ago, that's like WR1 territory, like bona fide WR1 territory.
I think his ceiling is way too high, high to pass up at that ADP.
Agreed. Fab?
I agree. I mean, I like JSN's ADP at wide receiver 12. I actually drafted him last night too, along with Kenneth Walker III. I expect him to have a similar season as last year, maybe a little bit better, but not by much. So like, I'm looking for him to finish as again, like if he finishes top 10, it's like he's 9-8. I don't know how he'll be able to knock on the top 5. He has to have an explosive season, and considering the quarterback that's throwing to him, it might be a little bit too tough. That's why I feel a little more comfortable as a wide receiver 12, and I think he also pays back that draft capital at that spot.
I think if they can establish a really good running game, the play action will do wonders for his stats.
I agree.
That's a great call.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Anything on Torrey Horton? A little bit of rookie sleeper, 4.41 speed, 38 vertical. Anything to kind of, do you see him kind of getting into the fold at all?
He should be. I don't know if drafted, but he made the team. They cut Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And that is like JSN's profile is more of a slot guy. He's not super fast, obviously with Cooper Kupp as well. So I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities for them to throw the ball downfield. So another guy that should be watching. He had a really good career in college.
Definitely agree. And at the tight end spot, there's really nothing relevant going on at the at the tight end spot in Seattle. I think it's going to be really depth or
Elijah Arroyo, I believe.
Yeah, I don't.
Did he
I
make
don't
the
think
team?
I see.
Did he make the cut?
Yeah, because they released Noah Fant, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So
I don't think
Barner and Arroyo. I think.
Yeah, I don't see any fantasy relevance for tight ends in Seattle. So that'll do it for the Seahawks. We'll continue this with the Arizona Cardinals, who finished 8-9 last year. Very inconsistent offense. Harrison Jr. had some flashes, but was kind of underwhelming. And he was what was he, like the wide receiver 5 last year? He was going in drafts, which was we laughed about it all year.
Wide receiver 10. Like I drafted him as wide receiver 10 in one of my drafts. That was a horrible.
Yeah,
mistake.
That must have not gone well at all.
I finished I finished last in that league.
Yeah, Trey McBride, who had a breakout season, finished as the tight end 2. Kyler Murray continued to be a year away from being a year away. I think we say it really often. He's just really too short and can't see over his linemen and has trouble with the middle of the field. So if he's not going outside, he's going to have trouble. James Conner had a really solid year. I think got injured towards the end of the year, but I think it was one of his healthier and better seasons. So that was nice to see. Some noteworthy changes. They emphasized on defense. They signed Josh Sweat. They drafted Will Johnson and Walter Nolan. And the offense returns pretty much intact. It's got some young weapons, and Kyler Murray's still there. It's like you said, 1 year away from being 1 year away. And I guess without further ado, we'll dive a little bit deeper on Kyler Murray here. Currently going as QB9, ADP of 44.6. The rushing upside kind of keeps him in that top 10 momentum, but Fab, is Kyler's upside kind of cap, making him more floor than ceiling?
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Like right now he's going as QB9, and that is the highest that I would consider taking him. Figure last year he finished as QB10. Year before that, where he missed a few games, so he finished at 27, 19, 10, 2, 7. So like he's always been finishing around like low QB1 status, I think. So for me, QB9, QB10, that's where he would be. He hasn't pushed past 500 rushing yards since his second year. Well, sorry, since his highest rushing total was 819 yards, and that was in 2020. Since then, he hasn't even sniffed like 600. So just to say, like, I feel like a lot of his fantasy points do come from his legs, and if he's not rushing the amount of times you expect him to rush in a game, his ceiling will be capped for sure. And I think we're looking at more of a floor than a ceiling, and QB9 is appropriately valued for me at that spot.
Junior?
Yeah, you guys pretty much said it all. I mean, he's small. I heard an interview the other day that Brock Purdy did, saying how sometimes he really can't see anything because of the beasts in front of him, and he's a shorter quarterback. And he's like, and then they start lifting their arms, raising their arms, and you really can't see. And he's like, you're just programmed to put the ball in a place where the receiver is supposed to be. So he's like, I throw blind. So sometimes Kyler Murray is even smaller, so he's throwing blind, expecting his receivers to be certain places. It's really hard. Like you said, if he's not on the outside, he's got no clear vision, no clear path. And what scares me the most about that is the closer you get to the end zone, the less you see because there's no downfield. So the potential of touchdown scares me as well. So,
and I know, Rod, you've been critical of Kyler Murray a lot over this over our pods. I'm curious to see what you think about Kyler this year.
I hate him at QB9. I don't but I don't understand why he's still rated that high. I feel like we're still kind of thinking of him in that, was it 2020 or 2021 season where he midway MVP, and I don't know, one of you mentioned it, but he hasn't had any over 500 yards. The last time he was at 800 yards rushing was in 2020, and his ACL injury was 2022, and he was already going down and rushing. He stopped running the ball. So if he's not rushing anymore, he has issues in the red zone because he's short. The Arizona Cardinals have become a running team. They're one of the teams that runs the most now in the league with their offensive structure. I'm not sure why the upside is that high to put him at QB9 anymore. And they become a ball control offense. So he's a guy who, if I could get him at a better cost than QB9, depending on his ADP, I don't mind. But I don't want. I would rather have like Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy or even Drake May, who might actually have more rushing yards this year than Kyler Murray.
Is he like the more expensive Justin Fields?
I think he's more accurate than Justin Fields.
Yeah.
No, I was talking about ADP wise. Like, are you going to get more or less the same thing out of Justin Fields as you would out of Kyler Murray?
I agree with you, Fat. It's going to look hell of a lot worse. But so Justin Fields is like, don't watch the game, just look at the box score.
No,
it'll look
you're
the exact
exactly
same as
right
Kyler
about
Murray.
that. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Any Call of Duty games coming out this year? That could determine quite a bit.
Yeah.
No.
So that'll do it for the the quarterbacks. We'll dive into the running backs next. So as we mentioned, James Conner had one of his healthiest years, and I think one of his better years as a running back. He's currently going as running back 18 with an ADP of 62, and then you have his backup Trey Benson, who's going as running back 47. Raj, is this a year where you can kind of see a little bit of a decline in Connor and then maybe Benson kind of overtaking him? I know Benson didn't have the greatest rookie season, but do you see an avenue where Benson does take over midway through?
They're saying they want to get Benson more involved. I'm going to believe it when I see it. Connor had such a good season. I have been gobbling him up in many mock drafts that I'm doing, and I think he's a great value at RB2. The worry about him is always, potentially the injuries, but I think he's as steady as they come. He had probably his best fantasy season to date, and he was able to still add in 47 catches. So he does help you in PPR as well. So I think he's a great value where he's going. I believe it's ADP 62.
18.
Yeah,
ADP 62,
RB,
yeah.
sixth round for James Conner, like very safe RB2. That's fantastic value in my opinion.
Yeah, he's going right after Brees Hall right now. And I think I'd rather Connor over Brees Hall, if I'm being
100%.
honest. Fab, what do you think?
I like James Conner a lot. For me, he's a true pro. And you saw it in the offseason when he's talking up Trey Benson. So, Roger, to your point about how they expect to get Trey Benson more involved, you're going to believe it when you see it. I believe it a little bit more just because it's coming out of James Conner's mouth. So when he talks about how Trey's going to get more involved, I think you're looking at, I don't know if it's going to move the needle that much for James Conner. Right now, he's RB18. He's probably going to still end somewhere around RB18, 19, 20. But I think this has more of a ceiling potential for Trey Benson, who I know we're talking about James Conner. And for me, 100% consummate pro. He's a meat and potatoes guy, RB2, all good, no problem. But I think this Trey Benson might surprise a lot of people, and he's going to go like a bunch of rounds later, and he can probably just come back with some flex value throughout the season because they're talking him up quite a bit. And James Conner knows that, okay, he's 30, he doesn't have a lot of years left, and eventually he's going to have to give up the reins to Trey Benson, right? So
Junior, how are we feeling?
I love James Conner. I had him last year, helped me out a ton. Just to Fab's point earlier with Kyren Williams, if you go 0 RB,
yeah,
and you end up with Kyren Williams and James Conner, you set yourself up pretty nicely.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a solid duo. So no, I love James Conner. If they add Benson a little bit, last year I handcuffed him with Benson, but it ended up being a little useless for me because they didn't utilize him that much. Maybe that's an option for people too this year.
Yeah, I would say with the talks, if you're going to draft Connor, you might want to try to grab Benson some point in the later rounds. Uh, but where he's at right now, I think I agree with all of you as well. 18 is he's a top 20 running back for sure. Even if I think Benson eats into his workload, and like Rod said, I got to see it to believe it because they drafted him pretty high last year, and he wasn't really mixed in a whole lot as James Conner was cooking. So then we get into the wide receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr. in his sophomore year is going as wide receiver 18, ADP of 35. Then you have Michael Wilson, wide receiver 74. Do you see him, Junior, kind of vaulting into like an elite tier 2 wide receiver in his second year, or can he push for that, even those top 10 numbers, or is he still kind of wait and see for you?
It's still wait and see, but I think it's more about Kyler Murray than it is about him. I think if he had more stable quarterback play, I think he could put up wide receiver 2 numbers easily. But it's hard. It's hard to rely on Kyler Murray. If you're going to draft Kyler Murray, as we said before, it's about his legs, right? So it kind of leaves the wide receivers vulnerable. Other than McBride, I mean, even Harrison Jr. last year didn't see that much volume until the second half a little bit. Or if you were unlucky like me and played him in week 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, over 100 yards and 2 catches. But it's a tough wide receiver crop to evaluate because of the uncertainty at the quarterback play. And I feel like that's a trending topic in this division, you know?
And I know, Rod, you were very vocal on the subject of him going very high last year, and his ADP was even very high last year. At wide receiver 18, is it an easier pill to swallow for you?
I'm okay missing out on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s big year again. I think Jr. laid it out very well with regards to Kyler Murray and how good of a passing quarterback he is. Like, he still finished the WR27, so he did eventually have a decent season, but it was very inefficient. For a wide receiver who had 100 plus targets, a 54% catch rate is really, really poor. Like you typically want to be in like 60, 65%. And I think there was like a lot of analysts were saying there's concerns with him, like at the catch point, and like he looks slower in his routes. I'm going to be interested in watching him. I really don't want to own him, but I'll be interested in seeing how he fares this year. Because if it's another year where there's struggles, it's not. I think he's going to feel a lot more noise than he's feeling, especially considering how BTJ is doing, considering how Lad McConkey is doing as well. So
Neighbors
as well. Yes, Neighbors even more so.
How do you forget Neighbors?
But how do you fault the guy if his QB's throwing blind?
So that's I always thought that like Kyler being small needs to have like a big target, that could just kind of bail him out. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see.
Fab, any last thoughts on the wide receiver room?
I'm fully on board with missing the Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out party as well. And it's not going to happen this year for what it's worth. But at wide receiver 18 in your ADP, there's a lot of guys that are going after him that are much more interesting in my opinion. And this is not to say that he's a bad player at all. He's supremely talented, but Raj, you mentioned the catch percentage, right? He had 116 targets, only brought in 62 receptions. You have to wonder about the quality of those targets as well, which always goes back to what we're talking about too with Kyler Murray. I think for as long as he has Kyler Murray throwing to him, you're not going to be able to have a player that's going to bust out for 1,400 yards and like 10 touchdowns. Last year, he had 885 yards and 8 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets to 1,000 yards and maybe 10 touchdowns, but that might be his ceiling from a fantasy perspective.
Junior, final thought?
My only counter to that, and I'm not comparing them, but Kyler was still somehow able to sustain DeAndre Hopkins. Like somewhat similar profile. They're not speedsters, a bit more possession guys. Supposed to come in with like really good route running prowess. But I totally see your point. It's just there's been some proof of concept that Kyler Murray can sustain a WR1 in DeAndre Hopkins, mind you, a future Hall of Famer. But again, like it's going to be a really interesting season for him.
Like I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is highly touted. We're talking about D-Hop.
Yeah, but that's exact. I prefaced that exactly the same way.
And as a wide receiver one, to only have 2 games of 6+ catches, it's not ideal. Not ideal.
Yeah, it was an up
despite the targets.
Yeah, definitely up and down rookie season. And I think to Fab's point, some wide receivers going after him: Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Detroya McMillan.
McLaurin is going after him?
One spot after him at 19. That figures to probably go up a little bit now that he's signed. Maybe Fantasy Pros hasn't really updated their list yet, but he's going one before Terry McLaurin.
That should help Debo too.
100%.
And obviously the tight end who was, we mentioned the tight end 2 on the year. He is going as the tight end 2 this year with an ADP of 23. Had a lot of targets last year, and I don't know. Could he be on the verge? Like we know how we saw Brock Bowers kind of take the tight end room by storm last year and had all those receptions. Could this be a season where McBride kind of challenges for the tight end record of 116? Junior?
Not without touchdowns. I mean, that was the thing that hindered him the most, despite being tight end 2. What did he have? 2 touchdowns last year?
2. And
so
it came late. They came very late.
Very late.
They came the last
had
2
him
games of the season.
I reached for him a little bit last year in like the beginning of the 3rd round. So, I mean, it paid off, but to be tight end 1, he's going to have to take in more touchdowns. And with Kyler Murray throwing blind and not being able to see it within 10 yards, it's going to be hard in the red zone. So, all jokes aside, he's still super valuable, but to be tight end 1, it'll be difficult without touchdowns. Even though I do suspect he'll get more than 2 this year. I hope.
Yeah, you would have to figure it'd be better than 2. And Fab, are you good? And right now ADP 23. So in drafts with 10 people, he's going, late 2nd, early 3rd, and he's going in the 2nd round in 12 team leagues. Are you okay drafting him that high, or would you rather go after another position?
I have to be no, and it's I just don't value tight ends all that much, to be honest with you. I'm not the type of and I've always been like this, so you're probably asking the wrong person. Unless he falls to me at a very good spot, and unless I'm looking around and like, okay, none of these guys necessarily move the needle, then yes, I'll consider it. But typically, I'll always be drafting skill position players at that spot, and especially because we're in a 2 QB league, it's kind of hard for me to focus in on a position where we only start one of them versus the other positions where we start 2, 3, or whatever the case may be, right? So, and I had Trey McBride, I think, his second year, because last year was his third year. I had him. I picked him up off waivers, and it was magical to watch because this guy is just catching 8 receptions and 90 yards every single game, right? And then obviously, to Junior's point, the touchdown issue is a real issue. I just can't bring myself to drafting a tight end that high. It's against my being.
I think Raj, you kind of echo that sentiment. For you, it would be like drafting him in the third, coming off. It would be what, like the third guy in the
Well,
third pick or fourth pick in the second round,
he would have finished
or
as the
or third round.
WR17 last year. So
There you
like
go.
Tucker Kraft, who a lot of people are talking about right now, who could be a nice sleeper pick at tight end, is going 118.
So that, I think that says it all. Elite tight end. It's just that the problem with these elite tight ends is they come at a cost, and as Raj always alludes to, it's you compare them to the wide receivers that are there, and the wide receivers are going to have more points, and you start more wide receivers than tight ends, obviously, in fantasy football, unless you're Nick and you draft Laporta and McBride back to back. But we'll move on. That'll be it for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll move into the last place. San Francisco 49ers finished 6-11 last year. Obviously, started off bad with the McCaffrey injury that kind of derailed the season. Had to rely heavily on George Kittle, who had a fantastic season. Purdy too kind of had a uneven kind of up and down season. Juan Jennings, though, did emerge, but is now injured slash holding out. So there's some noteworthy changes. They drafted Jordan James at the running back position, and the depth issues at the wide receivers continues. Feels like we're always talking about wide receiver in the 49ers land every summer. So we'll start off with the QB. Brock Purdy got his big shiny new deal. Right now going as QB 11, ADP of 51. He is an efficient passer. But curious to see, Raj, could he shock the world and be the MVP and, push for top 5 fantasy football numbers?
I'd like to pass along to my friend Junior here, who's part of the 49er faithful. Please, I want to hear Junior your thoughts.
MVP? No, I'm just kidding. You know what? His numbers will be better so long as McCaffrey's there. It's an addition. Like, despite the troubles at wide receiver, just having McCaffrey there opens up way more of the field for him, whether it's checkdowns to him, screens, if it opens up the field for the wide receivers. So I see Purdy having a better year, but there's always the big if McCaffrey stays healthy. What I do like, though, from a general perspective, I know we'll talk about the running backs a little later, is that they went to go get some solid depth at running back with Brian Robinson Jr. Now they just signed McCormick today. So that's going to help alleviate, because since the combo of Elijah Mitchell and McCaffrey, this has been the best running back group in a while. So I don't see the drop-off being as bad as last year if McCaffrey were to miss a couple of games. That should help Purdy big time.
Raj, we liking Purdy?
I am. And it's interesting because his 2023 season, he had a really great passing season, 4,200 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 INTs. Last year, he dipped in terms of touchdowns and yards. He was injured a little bit, but he was able to add 66 rushes for a little over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. So you sneakily got an interesting peek in the fact that he can be a rushing QB. I like him a lot as he's a high end QB2. Despite the injuries, Kittle is still there. There's a lot of talk about what Ricky Pearsall is going to do. Looks like Christian McCaffrey is healthy as well. He's in a Kyle Shanahan offense. It's going to be his third or fourth year in that offense. I think Kyle Shanahan has the utmost trust in him. So I very much like Brock Purdy this year in a somewhat bounce back season.
Fab, any pushback?
I don't have pushback. I do like him, Brock Purdy. I don't know if he's going to be able to replicate his QB6 overall finish in 2023. So I like him as a high end QB2. So QB11 again. That value is good for me. I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. I think he finishes around that spot.
There's quarterbacks like Prescott and Herbert that are being drafted after him that I think I might still consider at or before Purdy.
Prescott for sure.
Especially Prescott. I think his ceiling could be so high.
His ceiling is MVP level. And I know we don't like saying that word about Dak Prescott, but his ceiling is legitimately MVP level.
Yeah. So I think there's discussions to be made for sure around that area.
I think Purdy, I like Purdy because he's a safe option. Like for me, he's a very, very exactly what you're getting, low variance, and his ceiling is pretty decent for like a high end QB2.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me, like I said, we'll talk about it later in the show, but who's he passing to this year and right now? So I'm a little bit concerned there. So, but then we get into the interesting running back room that is Christian McCaffrey. So going as RB4, ADP 17. So definitely elite when he's healthy. They still have Isaac Guerrero there, and they did add Brian Thomas Jr. to the fold. So with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, Raj, can he lead the league in PPR points again, or do you see another or a drop off, or maybe a potential injury happening again?
100%. It's Christian McCaffrey. Like, as if you somehow guarantee a clean bill of health, I am pressing that draft button. I'm smashing it, and it's not even a question. Like, look at his 2020. Like, I looked at his 2023 stats: 1,500 yards, 14 rushing touchdowns, 67 receptions, 564 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. Like, he was at like 25, 26 points per game. So this is an easy one for me. And I think people will skip on him because of the injury history. And I think you got to be brave, man. If you see McCaffrey in the second round, you got to be brave and you got to do it.
Fab?
I think the last time he had like season-ending injury, he came back the following year and finished as like RB2 or something. So I'm saying there's proof of concept. There's a body of work that exists already. And you would be foolish to count out Christian McCaffrey. I just like everybody else, I am skeptical. However, if he's there for me at that spot, it's going to be hard for me not to draft him, especially since I've never had him on my team before. So there's that little level of excitement that comes with it. But yeah, like if camp says he's healthy, the players around him during training camp say he looks like MVP quality Christian McCaffrey. Like the buzz is good. Pick up the handcuff, but draft Christian McCaffrey.
He just had a kid.
I'll do my Dov Kleiman impersonation here.
Oh my
God. They clocked him at the fastest speed ever in his career during training camp. So watch out.
That guy makes me laugh, man. He has the most running back of all time. It's crazy. It's crazy.
He's too good. Honestly, it's if he slides, and I know it's stupid to say, but picking someone in the first round and calling him a league winner, but if he slides, he could literally be your league winner. You might be drafting, especially in 2 QB leagues, if you get him in the second round.
I think that's very realistic, honestly.
Yeah, it's I know it's going to be. I'm interested to see different draft boards and different people drafting and seeing where he's going, because it's definitely going to be interesting. And if he's healthy, he could definitely be a league winner.
And with the injuries at wide receiver in PPR leagues, that could be a bonus too.
Yep. Great segue into diving into now the wide receiver room. So the Brandon Ayuk saga continues. He was placed on the PUP list, so that's the physically unable to perform. So I think that's minimum 6 games, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, that he misses. So as he recovers from an ACL. Juwan Jennings has also been hampered by a calf injury slash he's holding out. I saw a funny tweet actually today saying that if they rub some money on his calf, it might get him it might get him running faster. So he's actually going as a wide receiver 41 right now, ADP of 112. Ayuk is still going as wide receiver 45. You have Ricky Purcell, who's probably the most healthy on the roster right now, going as wide receiver 39. And then there's Demarcus Robinson, who they have, but he's also suspended for the first 3 games of the season. So you've got to take that into account. So, Junior, I ask you again here: do they already have buyer's remorse on Ayuk, and are we looking at a potential breakout for Purcell while Jennings and Ayuk are kind of on the sideline?
Yeah, it sure looks that way. Even last year, Pearsall, like he came through when needed, especially when Ayuk went down and he came back and he was healthy. He missed a few games too in between, but you saw right away that there was a connection between him and Purdy starting to be created. And the training camp too. I mean, training camp preseason, you see it, it's there. He targets him. He's not scared. So he's the guy I'm watching for. I think Jennings, like you said, it's just a question of contract. I think it's a quote unquote holdout for. I mean, John Lynch said today he did ask for a trade early on, but they moved on from that, so that's off the table. But so I do think it's a question of money. He just needs to get his contract, and he's still going to be as valuable as he was to fantasy rosters last year. Buyer's remorse on Ayuk, I don't think so. I think for this year, for me, he's a hard pass because already you haven't done training camp. You're gonna miss the first 6 weeks. It's gonna take you another 3 to 4 weeks to get into game shape, like playing against an opponent with pads and being hit. So I think, I mean, if you want him for a run at the playoffs, you can. I think he might be available, but I think he's too good of a wide receiver to say it's buyer's remorse just yet. So yeah, no, I really like Ayuk. I think he's a really underrated wide receiver in the league. And I know it comes across as being biased perhaps, but he's such a good route runner that he creates space. He creates so much space for himself. It's ridiculous. But for this year, for me, is a hard pass. I can't rely on him at all. Not even to stash him on my IR. I'd rather have Jennings, or better than that, I'd rather have Pearsall. I think he could be. I think his ADP right now. Pearsall is where was I here?
100
100. I
wide
think that's very
receiver
fair
39.
value. He's going to be wide receiver 1
Yeah.
on the team. So yeah, look out for him.
What are we feeling this wide receiver room? Who you are you as well comfortable with Pearsall, or you avoiding?
No, I'm comfortable with Pearsall. I'm not avoiding. That ADP is very, very nice. He's coming in on like at a very low end wide receiver 3. I think realistically, you can even get like low end wide receiver 2 numbers from him. The Juwan Jennings saga to me it bothers me more because you really saw Jennings turn it on last year in the little bit amount of time. Like you saw him really come into that starter role, like right after week 4 when he blew up with those 3 touchdowns. And even when like there were games where Ayuk was playing and he was going and Purdy was throwing it to Jennings, like he really took over that role and you would just hope that whatever this is going on right now, whatever this issue is, does get solved. Because having those 2 guys on opposite sides on the field would do wonders for Brock Purdy. And you're getting a quality wide receiver 2 at like a wide receiver 4 price right now. So I'm not out on Juwan Jennings, but I'm cautiously drafting him at his current ADP because if he misses the first game, then there's always the ramp up period. And like as much as practice is important to these guys, it doesn't practice is soft nowadays for NFL players. Like doesn't really substitute what in game hits are. So I just feel like it's buyers beware a little bit with Juwan Jennings. But Ricky Pearsall at that ADP, 100%, I'm all over that.
And Raj, yeah, just quickly, if for whatever reason before the season Jennings does sign his contract to give him more money, he's right now wide receiver 41, Purcell 39. Who are you grabbing first?
I'll take Purcell, especially the way he ended the season, week 17, week 18, 28 PPR points against the Lions, and then 19 PPR points against the Cardinals. I think he ended the year really well. Both games he scored touchdowns too. So I would definitely go with Purcell. But every year the Niners with the wide receiver room, like it's always murky, and they sign. I think there's some cause for concern because I think today they just signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so they probably assume that maybe Juwan Jennings, it might be risky for him to be there week one, and then
they have Robinson too that they got from the Rams, who's suspended for 2 games,
and then they're going to try to make something out of Sky Moore as well, who we'll see, but
just taking everything and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, they need bodies. At this point,
they need bodies. But I think this will be it'll still be a high volume pass attack, and I think with McCaffrey, with Purcell, we're going to mention obviously George Kittle after. I think there's still enough weapons there for them to make it happen.
Yeah, as you mentioned, George Kittle. We'll dive into just the last part here. The tight ends. He figures to be involved a lot, especially at the beginning of the year, as probably the most reliable pass catcher on the roster. Currently going as tight end 3, so a lot of big name tight ends in this division. ADP of 35, so he's still in that tight end range. I mean, do you see potentially an avenue where you could probably get him at more of a discount because people are going to go after Bowers and McBride first, and maybe George Kittle kind of falls? Like, what do you think, Fab? Could he kind of get lost, or are you going to have to pay a premium for him?
No, I agree with that. I think he can kind of get lost a little bit. I think people are going to be they're going to reach for the Bowers and the McBrides of the world, and then I think Kittle might get lost a little bit in the shuffle. He's played 8 seasons. Of the 8 seasons, 6 he's finished as a top 5 tight end. Like, you want to talk about a model of consistency? It's George Kittle. And the years that he's not injured and playing healthy, you're looking at a top 3, top 2 tight end. So for me, if I leave the drafts and George Kittle is my tight end, I'm very happy with that, because that just means I was able to get more value from my tight end spot while still getting top end talent in my other positions on my team. So for me, George Kittle is. I'm keeping an eye out for George Kittle in the draft. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to see where he lands and where he's going and where I'm drafting, and if I can snag him and put him in my tight end spot, I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah, last year I managed to get him in like round 6. So that was everyone was he had a tough year in 2023, and I managed to snag him low. But Raj, is this someone you're kind of keeping the tabs on and seeing where he falls, and if he potentially goes out of the third and slips into the fourth, is that someone you're comfortable grabbing in the 4th round?
He's probably the only tight end of the top tight ends I'm comfortable drafting at that rate, because he has the touchdown production. 11, 6, and 8 touchdowns over the past 3 years. He had an 83% catch rate last season. Like, he is one of the most efficient players in the league. I think he's the best overall tight end in the league if you combine the blocking as well. So totally, if there's someone who I'm going to take at the tight end position high, it will be George Kittle, and I think he's so much in lockstep with Brock Purdy right now.
And I'll give the final word to Junior, our 49ers aficionado. Whoa. That did not come off well. But I'll give you the final word, Junior.
Yeah, no, Kittle is like 4+ seasons, 4 seasons with over 1,000 yards receiving. And he's one of the best tight end blockers in the league. Like Raj said, one of the best, probably if not the best overall tight end in the league. The one thing with him is that like he's never healthy, even though he does play every game. He's never 100%. So sometimes he's a decoy, sometimes he's just a blocker. So it's hard. The only reason I don't think he'll slide and get lost is because of the injuries at wide receiver. So I do think people will automatically assume, okay, well, they're just going to feed the ball to Kittle as much as possible between him and McCaffrey. The one tight end that could probably slide, despite the big engagement announcement, is probably Travis Kelce. And that could be possibly a nice pickup later on. But Kittle won't disappoint. I think he's well suited at his ADP.
Yeah, he definitely had a Q next to his name the whole season. I think even week 1 was started with a Q, and he did miss a couple of games, kind of like out of the blue as well. So,
his pain tolerance is high enough that you could rely on him even with the Q.
Yeah, no, for sure. If he's playing, you're starting him 100%.
Yeah.
There's no way you're benching him if he's playing.
He's a wrestling guy. He's just faking it, right, Junior?
The thing with the 49ers too is that on paper they have the easiest schedule.
Yeah.
Now, they always say, right, you got to be a good team to take advantage of a bad schedule. We'll see how it plays out, but there's an opportunity here for the 49ers to have a big fantasy outlook.
Yeah, honestly,
for 2025.
I have a buddy at work who took the under on 10.5 wins. And then when I'm like, I saw that, I'm like, 10.5 seems high for the 49ers. And then I went to look at their schedule, and I couldn't find a way for them to lose 7 games. Like it looked really tough.
The first 6 games, I think, is the hardest stretch they have. Then they really play like non-playoff teams towards the second half of the season. So if they can get by even without Ayuk and the injuries to start, even if they're like 500 after 6 games, they could still really win the division. But I could see them just as much winning the division as not making the playoffs. It's that uncertain, I guess, as long as they stay healthy.
Well, that'll do it for this year's division previews. We got through all of them, boys. Well done. Junior, I want to say thank you. Big thanks for joining us today. Very, very valuable insight, and really come back anytime. That was awesome.
Thank you, guys. Actually, you've done an excellent job, especially like the dog days of the NFL season. You kept me in the mood to hear NFL talk. And no, seriously, like the content is great. So it's prepared me for my drafts. And I think the misconception in podcasts is, and I say this all the time, is it's not a question of whether you agree or not. It's just getting all the content you can and making your own opinions of it.
Very true.
It's not there's no wrong in getting content from many different outlets. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So it really helped that you guys had it during the dog days where most people probably shut it off. So thank you to you guys, man. Keep it up.
Appreciate that, and well said, honestly.
Thank you,
but thank you again, Junior. And guys, please be sure to check out the Partial Breakaway podcast for everything hockey. You will definitely not be disappointed. We will be back next week with our love-hate segment. It is back, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not miss that. And we might have a special surprise. We may or may not be doing a live draft, so stay tuned for that.
Those are the best. I hope you guys do it. No pressure.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Nak. That's Raj, Fab, and Junior, and we'll see you guys next week. Cue the music. Football is back next week, boys.
Yeah, that week 1 snuck up on me, but I'm not complaining one bit.
Yes.
Now I want to draft George Kittle.
Guys, I have to say, I love the extra chatter after the music. It's the best. It's like after the credits of the movies where you see that extra scene. Oh my God.
So that's a way to know if you're actually listening or not.
Yeah.
Good point.
Take care, everyone.
I did my homework.
Goodbye.
Peace out.